For those schools that would rather sweep it under the carpet, they have to have a futuristic view of their actions. Essentially, we are discharged with the responsibility of protecting the future of our young ones, right? And so if we fear the reputational damage today versus the reputational damage when 9 out of 15 alumni pass on as a result of long-term use of prohibited substances, um, can you imagine that reputational damage? Because the truth will always come out. And so I encourage those schools who avoid having this conversation, those schools who avoid taking such actions, to really look at it in that way, in that it's up until everybody begins to do it, will then the narrative change. But for now, unfortunately, it is still something that comes out as a shock to the system, and that's why the media will then bite onto it as a school of dopers instead of saying that school is proactively taking a stance against anti-doping. And then also, I think for the purposes of this being a streamed event, also the media has the responsibility to tell a narrative that is not skewed, that is not biased. The media is charged with the responsibility of informing and educating. And I think those journalists who then take it upon themselves to tell the stories, they must also ask themselves these critical questions when they tell and report on these matters. And I think this responsibility of creating an environment across South Africa where we educate and empower, it falls on every one of us. I applaud the schools who take the stance, and the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport applauds the schools who take a stance against anti-doping. And we have schools who come forward and they say they want to test on the regular, who form part and parcel of our regular testing program. And those are schools that we do not look at as doping schools, even if they return positive doping results. We look at those schools as schools who are fighting this systematic doping opportunity that may exist alongside us, because we can't do it alone as the South African Institute for Drug-Free Sport. So I appeal, I implore, I beg all those administrators who want to sweep it under the rug that you're actually doing more damage. Forget reputation. Think about saving lives. Think about protecting young people who don't know better when you know better. There's a cost associated with running a testing program, and a portion of it will fall onto the institute if it is an organized testing program between the school and the institute. But for those events that are sanctioned by, say, for example, South African Rugby Association or SAFA or Cricket South Africa, so a recognized national federation, usually there's no cost associated to it, because that is something that would be, that cost or that expenditure would have been factored into our annual budget, because all the federations are expected to share with us their calendar of events, and then our planning team will then commit doping control officers into those specific events to run testing. So the best thing you can do as a school administrator or as a private club that you would like to have testing done is to get in touch with us, and then we can give a breakdown on what the cost would be associated with that. The school coach or administrator to the parent or the asking party, if you've never set everybody down in a hall and you said, as a school, as a club, this is our stance on anti-doping. Because then anybody who comes forward, they come forward knowing what are the rules, what is the regulation, what is our stance, and they merely coming looking for a further detailed breakdown of the information or of the rules or of the stance, versus if it's all left unsaid and there's this assumption, then it's going to be difficult to come down and lay the law of the house, because you don't want to make anybody uncomfortable or lose any parents or students, because also we must understand that schools want to have kids coming in, because essentially that's the business of the day, right? So I think it's very important then that schools sit down and they first internally, from an administration point, set their law of the house. What is regulation for this school in relation to anti-doping? And then communicate that to the parents, to the players, to the coaches, so that everybody is on the same wavelength. And then thereafter, anybody who comes with a question mark, it is always in reference to our regulation and stance as a school. Yeah, look, there are generic signs and symptoms, and actually, there's a slide I wish I showed you now that I didn't. But there are generic symptoms that you can sort of pick up, especially within your teens. Moodiness, you know, boys losing their facial hairs for those who already are growing facial hairs, or for those who didn't have facial hair over 3 months, they're now growing facial hair. You look at girls start to develop facial hairs as well. Boys lose their Adam's apple, and they lose the deepness of their voice, which can be a difficult thing to sort of identify in grade 8, 9, and 10 maybe, but perhaps in your grade 11s and 12s, you begin to see the boy developing and as they mature. And then ladies, you see in young girls, their voice starts to deepen a little bit, because what we see happening is that evidence shows that the reversal of patterns between male and female, um, it becomes so significant that it's easy to spot. Then we've got something that uh, we've tamed, roid rage, which really is this aggression that begins to simmer. Just small things are taken out of context, or they just there's an over exaggerated reaction to them. And I think those are just some of the surface levels reactions. And then some of the deeper things that, from a medical point of view, we always say you must start watching for a pattern of injuries. Players are now all of a sudden getting injured way easier than they used to be. And if you actually take that in reference of the bigger professional playing pool, look at the Premier League and the number of players that are having heart attacks on the field. Look at rugby, look at any other professional sport. Professional players are having cardiac arrests on the field. Why? Because we've changed our diet, the way we eat. We've changed some of the substances that we depend on as part of our recovery, or as part of our training regiment. And these come at the compromise of our bodies that we put under extreme pressure. And so those are just some of the things, the easy signs that you can look out for, I think. That's probably one of the biggest dangers with the use of supplements outside of the professional sporting environment, is that all these health consequences and the side effects are things that we will never really get the opportunity to speak about, because that's not the market that we are in the business of communicating with. Yes, great if you catch them. It's great you are doing a live stream on YouTube and Facebook and the likes, and everybody can come across it. Then, as a third level or third layer of a target audience in relation to this, they can come across, and one or two people can be saved. But in as far as the side effects, and usually they picked up when it's too late. You're looking at kidney failure, you're looking at an increased chance of heart attacks, you're looking at really what's the word I'm looking for, but damage to some of the internal organs, to the point where the only way to survive is organ transplant. And now, if you look at the context of South Africa, majority of the population does not believe in organ donation. And so really you are nominating yourself to be a part and parcel of an already exhaustive long list of people who are waiting for organ donation. You are potentially opening yourself up as well to other illnesses, because your immune system becomes compromised to the point where it needs to be dependent on these substances for its sustenance. I hope I'm making sense.
Yes.
So so really your kidneys are in danger, are in harm's way. Your heart is in harm's way. Your lung functionality is in the firing line. Also, what we don't speak about is brain bleeds, the continued and long-term use of supplement products, or prohibited substance, because we must cover that entire bracket of substances, can lead to brain bleeds. This is the evidence of research that is actually out there for everybody to see. And the only way you will ever spot a brain bleed is when it's too late.
Mm.
And unfortunately, that's something that we can try as much as we can to avoid happening in sports, but that unaccounted layer, in as far as those who are using substances or at least supplements for social purposes, And again, you'll go back to that slide that I had earlier on. Um, those people that do it for the gram, that do it for social media because they want to look good. Now everybody has been working on their December bodies because they want to look good at the beach. And so there's an increased use of supplements, right? Because you want to tone up, you want to bulk up. So you have that six pack for 6 weeks during that period. But the unintended side effects or the consequences thereof that you are nominating yourself are quite dire. And it's tragic. It really is tragic. If it is a supplement, we forget what the term supplement is, and we usually look at the proposed benefits. So a supplement is a substitute of a natural biological process that your body should be doing naturally, right?
Yes.
And so when you take a supplement, you are asking your body to fast track that process over a short period of time. So it doesn't matter what this supplement is supposed to be for. So, for example, you look at ladies' favorite supplement or the most famous supplement, even outside of sport, is Hebex, Hlasela Mafuta for Life, or any other weight loss supplement. And most people do not look at those weight loss substances as a supplement because they look at it as a weight loss product because the focus becomes on the promised benefit instead of what the product is actually for. And
True.
this is why most of these products then become so dangerous to our bodies because essentially we are fast tracking this biological process that's supposed to take time of a long period of time into a small period of time and still exert the same amount of pressure that we would that supposedly we should exert over a period of time on a concentrated amount of time, and that is what then leads to most of the problems that we have.
Mm. Okay,
So,
I
so
think
if it's a
we.
supplement, the short answer, I guess, if it's a supplement, then there's some sort of consequence that is unintended, or at least that you do not focus on, but is actually actively happening in the background.